Hi, well done for choosing A-level photography. This is an excellent choice. It's an enjoyable A-level. It's a great entry A-level for any creative degree courses. I want to talk to you first of all about the exam board that we work with. So we work with AQA, and if you're wanting to do a little bit more research about the content of the course, the assessment objectives, and so on, it's just AQA photography course that you need to look at. We've chosen this course because it's really nice and open with lots of different possibilities for possible outcomes. You can work on animation, filmmaking, and any aspect of photography, whether it's commercial and more commercial approach, studio based, portraiture, landscape, etc. I also wanted to talk to you about United Learning. So we are a UL sixth form. We're very proud and glad to be part of the United Learning Academy chain, which is the largest academy chain in the country. It has a reputation, in fact, core in its values are aspiration for all, ensuring that everyone makes the best possible progress that they can so that they ultimately enter the world of work and enter their life with as many choices and options as possible. And that really resonates with our department. This is the way that we've always operated. And in fact, if you have done any research or asked these sorts of questions, you'll know that we always get exceptional results from our students. We're one of the top 5% of departments in the country for outcomes, and our students regularly achieve 2 whole grades higher than their target grade. Generally, all of them achieve higher than their target grade, which just proves that we are not limited by what people might say you can achieve. We have always worked on the assumption that the sky's the limit, and if you're prepared to work hard, we will completely support you with that. Okay, next slide, please. Okay, so just a little bit of background on the course content. So 50% of your final grade is awarded for the coursework, and this is described as your personal investigation. We start off in year 12 on this, so you start work right from the beginning. In fact, if you are going to do the summer challenges, they can also become part of your coursework. But the personal investigation aspect doesn't start until you've completed your first mock exam. So we get you used to the way of working, we get you starting to think about how your ideas might progress, and then increasingly you'll be working independently. You will be producing a portfolio of work for your personal investigation, but you will also be producing a 3,000 word essay. Notice it says 1,000 to 3,000. Obviously, we aim for 3,000. 3,000 sounds loads, but if you have actually got into the habit of doing word counts for your essays, you'll know that's about 6 sides of typed A4, so it's not too onerous. You'll get plenty of support with that. It's not done in timed, controlled conditions or anything like that, so it's really not something for you to worry about. We know that while some of you love writing, we have plenty of students who they might love art and photography, but they don't particularly love writing huge essays, so don't be intimidated by that. The other part of the course is 50% exam. Your exam is going to be set in February of year 13, so it's a long way off. If you've done GCSE art, then you'll know the kind of format for the exam, which is that you get given the paper and you get given time to prepare, and then you come in and do, at GCSE, you do 10 hours getting on and completing that final piece. For A-level, you get 15 hours, but believe me, even in photography, you will need that, and it won't feel like too long. So it's a 3-day getting all your work rounded off and submitted for your exam. Okay, and we do have a mock exam, so you will get a chance to practice that. Okay, next please. Okay, so there's a little bit of information about the kind of things that AQA expect you to do in photography. You should show the ability to explore some of the fundamental aspects of visual language. You should have an awareness of your intended audience. You should understand, and we will work on this, how to respond to an issue, theme, concept, or idea. You should have an appreciation of viewpoint, composition, some of the basic camera settings. Again, because you're completely new to photography, we will be really making sure that you teach this. We don't expect any of you to know what aperture is or depth of field or shutter speed, but these are basic camera functions which can make a huge difference to your outcomes. With that in mind, you should be making appropriate use of film, camera, lenses, filters, lighting, etc. And understanding the techniques used for the production of photographic images. So we're talking there about Photoshop and Premiere if you're doing moving images and how to present them. So exhibition, how you exhibit your work is quite important as well. Okay, next. What should you have in your portfolio? So your portfolio is the thing that you leave us with. So once you've done your A-levels, 2 years, it goes incredibly quickly. You've done almost half a year in lockdown, so you know how fast time can go. Once you've done the course, you will then go off to, before you finish the course, you will start having interviews at university. And if you want to do an art or a photography or a creative course, they'll expect to see your portfolio. For photography, that can be a digital portfolio. Some of our photography students just created a website to use in their interviews, which was excellent. There is more advice on that link. Although you may not have thought about going to AUB, they will support us and you with your portfolio no matter where you want to go to university. So it's excellent to have a university on hand giving us that advice and increasing your chances of success when you go for higher education interviews. Last year, everyone who applied got into their chosen university, and the year before, in fact, from our courses. So not only did they get an offer, but they also got the grades so that they could achieve a place. You may not know, I'm going to have to tell you this quickly now. AUB is an aspirational university for arts students, so it's one of the best in the country. They have quite high entry requirements, sort of A, B, A level, or AAA for some of the more popular courses. But before you do an art degree or an arts-based degree or photography degree, you will do a foundation course. It's a 1-year free course that you can study at Arts Uni Bournemouth. You either do media, which will go if you're a photography student, or art, and from that you then automatically get a place, if you pass it, on the degree courses. And the entry requirements for the foundation, this free year, which I strongly recommend you do, are 2 Cs at A-level. So it's quite a good way of covering your bases, and it's an excellent course to do anyway. Even if you get really high grades, it's really good to have that experience, get a little taste of university life, have a look at all the different courses and decide which one you want to go for. Next slide, please. Okay, so here are some of the possible approaches in camera work. You may not really have got this far thinking about how you will be working in a photography A-level, but some possible ideas are portraiture, so you might do lots of work based on people. Landscape photography, so either working in an urban or a natural environment. Luckily in Bournemouth you have access to both the urban and the natural environment. Still life photography, so working from objects or with natural objects, man-made objects or natural objects. Documentary photography and photojournalism, so journalism, we usually think of as picking up on issues, but you can be a photojournalist without being there at sort of breaking news events, going to Trump rallies or going to war scenes. You might see activism on a much smaller scale, maybe some small marches in the town centre, or maybe just some evidence of some of the issues that affect you and people your age and society. Documentary photography can also be social documentary, so just looking at human behaviour. It's a really interesting one to do down at the beach, actually, doing a bit of people watching, seeing how people behave at the beach. For that one, it tends to be something that you don't necessarily ask people to pose for those photos. Kind of the idea of going incognito, so people won't be able to see you. That recently photographers have taken to photographing people from behind, so that you haven't actually got their face, and therefore they won't get across with you. Experimental imagery, fashion photography. So fashion is obviously commercial. Commercial can be thinking about clothing. It can be thinking about models. It can be thinking about themes. It can be thinking about processes. So for example, you could have some really nice commercial photography looking at food or making food or whatever. Experimental imagery, looking at different ideas and perhaps thinking about some less real scenes. So how you might create different effects, surrealist effects and so on. Google surrealist photography, you'll see some really interesting ideas. Multimedia, if you like art, you might like multimedia as an approach where you can potentially paint, draw, stitch into photographs. Photographic installation, so an example of photographic installation. I mean, really, it's the idea of how you exhibit your photographs, but people have gone even further than that and completely changed the nature of their photographs. For example, wrapping photographs of a face very carefully around a mannequin so that the mannequin looks a bit too real. That's quite interesting. Moving image, so you can look at film, video and animation, and in fact some of our highest achieving students have done that, because it is a pretty impressive approach if you are interested, and we have Premiere in the department, so you get into. Okay, next slide. Okay, so you will all get an exhibition space. The exhibition goes up at the end of year 13, and it's a showcase of the very best that you've done over the 2 years. This is the thing that the moderator comes around and has a look at, but it's also a really lovely opportunity to get your parents in, your teachers in, your friends in, whoever you want in, and we have a bit of a celebration and prizes, and it's lovely anyway. So that's something that you can hopefully look forward to, and you can see that, you know, mirrors and lights have been incorporated there, so you can when the time comes, you can really think about how you explore how you're going to present your work. Next slide, please. Okay, very boring little grid there of the mark scheme, but if you have a look more closely, you will see that, particularly if you did GCSE art, you'll recognise the headings there. So developing ideas, investigating contextual sources, exploring media, developing techniques and processes, recording ideas, reflecting on intentions, presenting a personal and meaningful response. It is the same as the GCSE mark scheme. It is the same as the A-level mark scheme for art. So it's a very similar process. You know, this is art photography. It's an ideas-based, generally, approach. So, you know, we're not obsessed with the technical aspect of it, although it's important you do understand some of the fundamental aspects of photography. But what is more important is that you use photography as a way of communicating your ideas. It's a lovely mark scheme to work from. I really like it because it's really open. Like the specification is open, the mark scheme is also really open. There are lots of different ways that you can demonstrate each of those 4 areas, which is how it should be for a creative subject. Okay.
So we're going to start off by describing this photograph. So you can obviously be a little bit more descriptive than I have here, but basically there's a family in a car, there's a man, a woman and 2 children. They are calm, but they look pretty unhappy, almost resigned to their fate. The man and the woman seem to care for one another as she leans into him and he embraces her. We don't actually know why they're in their car or what they're doing at the moment. They don't seem to be very wealthy by their clothes or their hairstyles or their cars, so we're kind of thinking that they're possibly not very well off. They're parked on an empty road, so they're not in transit, but you know, maybe they've stopped off, we don't know yet. We can't see any shops or houses. We can see a pot at the bottom of the picture that looks like it's been used to camp, so potentially they could be camping or going out for a day trip, we don't know. The woman looks tired and potentially not well, and the photograph is in black and white. We are fairly close up to the family, and we are invading their space, but there's also a feeling of familiarity with this. The focus is on the family in their car rather than what's in the background, so they've obviously used a short focal length when they've taken the photograph, and our eye is led from the young girl on the left to the father along a diagonal line. The mother's face is central to the image, which is actually called Golden Square, and we can't help but be drawn to her face and her look of despair and sadness. So the next thing you need to do is research and contextualise this photograph. So when was it taken? Where was it taken? Can you find out any information about the artist that might lead you to kind of figure out what they were intending? You know, is there anything going on at the time? So sometimes you might find war photographs, etc., that might give you a little bit of an insight of what the artist is trying to do or what they were photographing. So just a bit of brief research. This photograph is called The Dam Family in Their Car by Ellen Mark. and it's a photograph by her in Los Angeles, California in 1987. So the black and white photograph is not black and white because of age. It's probably to add a somber feel to the photograph, and she used a classic documentary approach, so usually in black and white. So it is that kind of quite cold, this is what this is, and rather than kind of more for aesthetic feel perhaps. And she was taking photographs to try and invoke change. So we can start thinking about what this photograph is about and why she was taking it and what kind of changes that maybe she was trying to. So narrative. So that doesn't mean you necessarily need to make up a story. It's what is actually happening here. You need to think about what is going on here. So we've looked at what we've got in front of us. We've had a little bit of research to give us a bit of an insight what the artist might have been trying to do. So what do you think this family story is? Why do you think they're living in a car? What do you think they're thinking or feeling? How do you think that they got into the situation? How are they going to survive? What will happen to them? Is the artist trying to convey a deeper meaning? So you can obviously go on into much more depth, but it's obviously that now that this family is not on a day trip. This is a family's home and a source of refuge. This is a portrait of a homeless family that's been forced to live in their car due to poverty, and the car is the family's most important possession. This is an example of the kind of photography the artist created to bring awareness of the homeless. The family are desperate and poor, but they are in it together, and they are still a family. They are close and comforting each other, and they are all each other has got. The mother almost looks like she's pleading with the viewer to help them, but the father looks like he's saying, I know you can't help. This is my life. What are you going to do? This is my problem, and this is my family, and I will care for them no matter what. And then you could go on to think about what might have led that. Maybe he lost his job. You know, they don't look necessarily like they're drug addicts or they've done this to themselves. They are together as a family. Somehow something tragic has happened to them. You know, and they obviously care for each other and are looking after their children, who are dressed and actually look well fed. So there is something that has happened to them that they possibly haven't done to themselves. And the artist is trying to convey the serious nature of this issue. So we've got another photograph here, and this time I would like you to have a go at describing it. So we've got here, remember the subject is what you can see, and colour, composition, location, mood, feeling, line, tone and texture. So you are going to have a go at describing what you can see. What I quite often say is imagine that somebody can't see the photograph that you are describing. So did you get any of these? Children playing in the ruins, derelict buildings, white buildings, so probably not British. They don't look very British, the buildings. They look quite somber, the children. Black and white photographs, so does that mean that's an old-fashioned photograph, or is it being selected to be black and white? Compositional rules, there's diagonals, a golden square, your eyes drawn to the centre of the image. So here we need you to research contextualise. So we want you to look up the artist. So we've given you the name, Henri Cartier-Bresson, and this photograph was taken in Seville in 1933. So try and find a little bit of history, maybe about him, maybe about what was going on in Seville in 1933, and see if you can kind of contextualise or give some sort of meaning to what was going on at the time of this photograph. So what conclusions did you make? So Bresson actually was very much influenced by the Surrealists in his early work, but he started to reject that later on. So he started becoming a documentary photographer. This photograph particularly has been thought quite often to be a representation of the issues of the Spanish Civil War, but actually this was taken before the war began. But whatever the context, we can see that the photographer is really identifying with the poor and disenfranchised, and this is a real situation and a documentary photograph of the sort of issues surrounding the locals in the area, with derelict buildings and children playing amongst the ruins, and obviously a lot of poverty. So now I want you to have a go at pulling all that information together. So you've already written a description, you've found a little bit of research. Now I want you to write about what you think is happening. I've already kind of said a few things, but now I want you to write about it.
Okay, and finally, your mini project and summer challenge. I know you've been given lots of summer challenges. This is just hopefully a fairly quick one that we're hoping is going to inspire you and lead you to produce some lovely outcomes. So you are going to be looking at the theme typologies. The word is typologies. You can Google it if you want. Basically, this is something that scientists do. It's that idea of organising and categorising something quite specific. So it's often used by collectors as a way of recording what they've got, but it's also a way of recording minor changes and small observations, a sequence of photos that relate to each other. So some examples have been given here, a sequence of food items. So on the next PowerPoint, you'll see a fab lolly being gradually eaten. But it could be something being moulded, it could be something being cooked or made. You know, we've got another one with a coffee being made. It could be a piece of fruit or something being peeled. You could think about some kind of diary. So, for example, either a plate of your food, so your dinner every day, or your plate when you finish your dinner every day, or you could do something like your face every day, or you could focus on a specific feature of your face in different, pulling different faces, different expressions, or you know, if it was maybe involving glasses, makeup, etc. You could take a photo view from your window every hour of the day, so potentially getting the different lighting and weather conditions, taking photographs of facial features, so lots of pictures of eyes or mouths or noses. You could take a photograph of a collection. You might not think you have a collection, but I definitely know some people who've got huge amounts of shoes, makeup, trainers. I know they're shoes as well, aren't they? Use your imagination. You could take photographs at the same colour and theme them. Works particularly effectively if you've got a coloured piece of fabric or paper that you can put in the background and then lay the objects on top of that to kind of highlight that colour or the same sort of shape. Next slide, please. Okay, so we've got a bit more detail here and some examples. So thinking about things being related to shape, colour, texture, pattern, form and line. I quite like the cloud watching one. I like the eyes. I quite like the fab lolly. I think that's very effective. The backs of heads is quite interesting as well. Okay, next slide, please. Okay, so some varying degrees of burnt toast. Right, so you just need to choose one and produce a sequence of photos. You can see there, you know, it helps if they're kind of square numbers, so 3 or 4, or we've got a 3 by 6 there, so you get that nice kind of sheet of where you can do the comparison quite easily. Okay, good luck with that. Please do share your outcomes. We look forward to seeing what you produce. Good luck, Year 11.